Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first official rebranded episode of That Jewish Podcast, formerly Kosher and Black. I am your host, Yirmeyahu. We have a lot to talk about, so let's get right into it.
You believe that a Yid will win in the end, that if you stand with Hashem and you stand for what's right, you will march across the finish line. You will have victory.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, again to another episode of, or I guess the first episode of That Jewish Podcast. I gotta get used to saying that. I'm so happy about the rebrand. I'm happy about the response. Has been overwhelmingly positive, so I thank you guys. So if you were formerly listening to Kosher and Black, it's just a different name, but it's the same message. So I thank everybody for sharing this podcast with others, listening to it. Listen, if you're on Instagram, if you're on TikTok, please hit that follow button. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Facebook as well. If you have WhatsApp, join the WhatsApp group. All these links will be in the podcast show notes as well as on YouTube if you're watching this. If you're watching on YouTube, listen, the video quality get better. I'm working through some things. I'm trying to learn some things as far as videography is concerned. But we have a lot to talk about, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to get right into what we have to talk about today. So we're talking about anti-Semitism today, and not what you may think. So we're going to listen to a few things that Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens has said. This by no means is about Candace Owens or about Tucker Carlson. These two people are tropes. Nothing these two people have said or the guests on their shows have said is anything new under the sun. Interesting enough, this week's, as of this recording, this week's Parsha is Shemot. So we see the first act of anti-Semitism and people just grabbing stuff out of thin air, making stuff up about Israel that is just absolutely not true. And the only way to combat things that are not true, falsehood, you combat it with the truth. Emet. Emet is the light that shines in the darkness 110% of the time. If we are consistently walking in truth, there's no darkness that can harm us. Okay. I think the biggest weapon, I'm currently reading this book called by Rabbi Shore. I'll put the link in the podcast show notes as well as YouTube. I'll share it on Instagram as a story as well. But it's called Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Jew? And it just talks about the history of anti-Semitism and how we, as Jewish people, make the mistake of thinking that anti-Semites are these dumb, bumbling idiots who have no rhyme or reason for their hate. For a lot of them, the exact opposite is actually true. They are very articulate. They're very smart. They are very tactical. And we need to be aware of that. But we don't need to be afraid of that. So the best way to combat, I believe, anti-Semitism is through education. We need to be educated about our history. We need to be educated about what's currently going on. We need to be educated about Israeli government and what's really happening in Israel, especially us in the diaspora. We can't always have this milk and honey view of Israel. Sometimes things aren't going so well in Israel. Sometimes the government and the people are not in sync, just like right here in America. Everybody doesn't love Donald Trump. Everybody didn't love Joe Biden. Everybody didn't love Barack Obama. Everybody didn't love Bush and Clinton and so on and so forth. And sometimes those disagreements can come to a head, whether in Israel it's in the Knesset, whether in America it's in Congress, whether it's January 2020, whether it's the Tea Party camping out in front of the White House, whatever these disagreements, the Occupy Wall Street, the Black Lives Matter marches, whatever these things manifest themselves in, Israel is no different than United States in that manner. So we need to have ourselves educated about these things. We need to be educated about Torah, Gemara. We need to be educated about mysticism and all these different things, Kabbalah. And I'm not saying you as an individual need to know all these things because that can sound overwhelming, right? None of us are masters of them all. But as a group, you know, you may have the piece on Torah. Someone else may have the piece on the Gemara. Someone else may have the piece on the government. Someone else may have the piece on the history. And together, we become useful weapons against anti-Semitism with the knowledge that we have about our own people, about our own history, about our own currently what's going on. But if we don't, we allow people like Tucker Carlson, people like Candace Owen, and their guests, Jewish or not, because they're even smart enough to go grab a Jew that agrees with them. But either way, whoever it is combating these lies, we need to be knowledgeable enough about the things that they're saying in order to combat them. Not to go on Twitter or X or whatever it's called, or Instagram and at them, but do things like this, whether it's a few part series on a podcast, whether it's educating your children, whether it's doing a shiur at your shul, whatever it is to arm people, because everybody doesn't have, the gall to at Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson, but you have at Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson on your job. They're at your grocery stores. They're on the subways. They're on the buses. They're walking down the street, and you need to be armed with the knowledge of all these things so that you can combat the darkness. The light always combats the darkness. We should, as long as we're walking in the light, we shouldn't be scared of the darkness. So let's get right into it. The first one is Tucker Carlson, right? And him and his guest. So we're going to share the screen and see exactly what they have to say about Israel as it relates to America and some other things. Let's get into that. See what he says.
On Israel. I'm not actually that interested. I personally like Israel, whatever. The red line for me is this is my country. My birthright is free speech. God gave me that right. And if you're telling me what I'm allowed to say in my country, you're my enemy. Like, it's just kind of that simple. You can't tell me what to say or think, period, because I'm an American.
You cannot enter a discussion with an Israel defender without them immediately accusing you of being a racist if they disagree with you. Oh, you're an anti-Semite. Try and have an argument. Criticize Israel just a little bit and count down the number of seconds before you get accused of being motivated by bigotry and hatred. And these are the people who say, oh, I hate the tactic of accusing everyone you disagree with of being a racist. That's their only tactic, their go-to tactic. The minute you question, like, why is the U.S. financing Israel's military in its wars when it not only hurts our own country, but when millions of Israelis are having better standard of living than millions of Americans? You're a Jew hater. You hate, you have some kind of problem with Jews. So it's the same tactic there.
Do they say that to you?
Constantly. Being Jewish is not in any way, does not give you any kind of immunity from that accusation. Like, zero.
I think you can have any opinion you want.
All righty. So that was Tucker Carlson. All right. So there were a couple of things he lifted up there. So his guest, who unfortunately is a Jewish person, but nonetheless, he lifted up the fact that, number one, if you say anything against Jewish people and you disagree with them, you're automatically pegged as anti-Semite. They said that the U.S. economy is hurt by funding Israel's military. And they said that Israelis live far better lives than those in the United States of America. So let's shine some light on all those things. First, one he said was, or at least one of the things he said was that if you disagree with pro-Israel people or Israelis or Jews about anything Israel, you're automatically pegged as an anti-Semite. So let's see what is the working definition, right, of anti-Semite, and then we can see what exactly they're really talking about. So here's the working definition of anti-Semitite given by the Holocaust Remembrance Memorial. And it says that anti-Semitism is a certain perception, right here, of Jews which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jews or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, toward Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. Then it goes down and gives examples. So it says calling for, aiding, or justifying the killing or harming of Jews in the name of radical idolatry or extremist views of religion. It says dehumanizing or or demonetizing or stereotypical allegations against Jews as such, or the power of Jews as a collective, such as especially but not exclusively the myth about a world Jewish conspiracy of Jews controlling the media, economy, government, or other societal institutions, accusing Jews as people of being responsible for real or imagined wrongdoing committed by a single Jew or a person or group, denying the fact, scope, mechanisms, or the intentionality of the genocide of the Jewish people at the hands of the National Socialist Germany, aka the Nazis, and its supporters and accomplices during the World War II, accusing Jewish people or Israel as a state of inventing or exaggerating the Holocaust, denying Jewish people the right of self-determination, applying double standards by recurring of it a behavior not expected or demanded of any other democratic nation, as far as like why is Israel not feeding the people they're in war with? That standard is not for any other nation. Drawing comparisons of contemporary Israeli policies to that of the Nazis, holding Jews collectively responsible for the actions of the state of Israel. All these different things are examples of just outright anti-Semitism. So can you disagree with Israel, Israelis, Jewish people on any issue of Jewishness? 100%. Just let me tell you, most of you listening to this already know that the state of Israel is a democracy, the only democracy in that whole region over there. If you don't like Bibi Netanyahu, you can sing it to the hilltop. If you don't like what the Knesset is doing, you can sing it to the hilltop. Just like in America, you don't like Donald Trump, you can climb the top of your roofs, get a megaphone, and tell the world how much you hate Donald Trump. You are free to do so. And no one's going to, well, they might, but even if people call you anti-American and all that stuff, you have the freedom to do so. It's not about disagreeing. This is the armor that anti-Semites try to put on themselves. That, well, all I'm doing is shining the light on facts. And if they, and they're calling me anti-Semite because they disagree. No, we're calling you anti-Semite because you're saying things that's harmful to Jews. You're using conspiracy theories and not facts for your stories. It's always, wait till I prove this or wait till we can prove this type stuff. And it's never anything concrete, never anything based in truth, never anything based in the light. It's always he said, she said stuff. And it's always the Jews. It's always the Jewish problem. When someone starts a conversation to try to talk about solving the Jewish problem, you already know that they're about to go swimming in the lake of anti-Semitism. It's a foregone conclusion. All right. So now that we have that definition, now let's look at some things that he said. He said that supplying the military, funding Israel's military is hurting the United States economy. Let's see if that's true. All right. Here we go. So this screen is from the American Jewish Committee, and it is talking about the title is What Every American Should Know About the U.S. Aid to Israel. And I'll put all these links into the show notes, into the description in YouTube. But it says a lot. But this is what I want you guys to see here. Let me find it. It says, how does U.S. aid in other countries serve American interests? How does U.S. aid to other countries serve U.S. interests? Serve American interests. It says the U.S. has long been a major, if not largest, provider of funding, training, military equipment, and weaponry to allied countries and strategic partners around the world. In 2023, it distributed more than $7 billion in military assistance to countries around the world, including Israel, Egypt, South Korea, and the Ukraine, all amounting to less than 1% of the federal budget. So you're telling me that spending less than 1% of the federal budget is having a large impact on the American people? I doubt that. Why is U.S. aid critical to Israel? Israel's enemies, nations and non-state actors, have repeatedly tried and failed to destroy the world's only Jewish state and eliminate its Jewish population. America has helped safeguard Israel's survival with political and financial support. Today, most of the aid America provides to Israel is focused on supporting the Jewish state's defense, its adversaries, such as Iran and Iran's terror proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. The current memorandum of understanding negotiated by President Obama commits an unprecedented $500 million annually in missile defense funding, including the Iron Dome, the strongest air defense system in the world. So for those, again, who believe that Obama did not support Israel, he most definitely did support Israel. Although he had, again, every president does weird things and we don't fully understand why, but he's given Israel $500 million. And let's be clear, he also funded Iran because they, promised not to make nuclear bombs. But right in their backyard, if you give terrorists money, they're going to fund terrorism. It just is what it is. But anyhow, David Sling and the Iron Beam. Why is this important? Because anti-Israel terror groups, including Hezbollah, next door to Lebanon, and Hamas and the Islamic Jihad in the neighboring Gaza, have sporadically launched tens of thousands of rockets on Israel for nearly 2 decades, putting the Jewish state in perpetual state of defense. The Iron Dome has intercepted 90% of projectiles fired at Israelis time and time again. Its ability to detect incoming rockets, determine the threat level, and intercept if human lives or infrastructure are at risk, have significantly lowered the deaths toll when Israelis are targeted by missiles and rocket attacks launched by Iran and Iran-backed terrorist groups. Just since October 7th, 2023 is talking about the attack, tens of thousands of rockets have been fired at Israeli civilians from Gaza simultaneously. Iran's terror proxy, Hezbollah, has attacked from the north. The Houthis attacked from Yemen, and the Iran regime has launched 2 separate direct attacks on the Jewish state. In order to help Israel defend itself from the unprecedented terror onslaught, Congress approved more than $14 billion in aid for Israel. So I'm not saying that America doesn't fund Israel, but let's conclude this, or let's keep going. It says this included $10.6 billion of assistance through the Defense Department, including air and missile defense support, industrial base investments, replenishment of depleted stockpiles of its crucial air defense missile system, and the aid package also include $3.7 billion for the State Department to strengthen Israel's defense and enhance security around the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. The October 7th attack led the United States to shift its military aid to include offensive weapons to help Israel root out Hamas terrorists from Gaza once and for all. And all that, ladies and gentlemen, combined with helping other countries, is just a whopping less than 1% of the United States federal government. Yeah, that's really hurting us, right? He made another fantastical statement. He said that Israelis live better, sitting high, living better than all of the Americans. So they're not only are they the Israelis robbing us of our federal fund, they're taking their federal funds and they're sitting high and pretty in their white porcelain mansions there in Israel. Is that true? Of course not. Let's shine the light on that lie as well. All right. Let's see. This is an article from the Times of Israel. It says and this was in December of 2024. All right. So nearly 2 million Israelis live below the poverty line in 2023. 1 in 4 children are poor. Man, that doesn't sound like they're living better than, sorry about all the pop-ups here, living better than Americans. It says nearly 2 million people are living below the poverty line in Israel. And that doesn't sound like a lot of people, but remember, Israel is not a large country, but America has 330 million people or something like that. Let me check real quick in real time. I'm checking here in real time. What is the population of the state of Israel? So let's see. Of Israel. It's 10 million, a little over 10 million. All right. That's how many people live in Israel. Live a little over 10 million. So 2 million of that 10 million are in poverty. And what does it say? It says, they didn't give me a percentage yet. Okay. So we'll stick with that number. 2 out of the 10 million people live under the poverty line, right? Including 872,400 children and 158,500 senior citizens, according to an annual report released Wednesday by the National Insurance Institute. A total of 1.98 million people were living below the line, placing the country second to last in the OECD poverty rating, according to the disposable income, with Costa Rica being the worst. So it's second to last. And if you're wondering what the OECD is, look that up for a quick second. It is the Organization of Economic Cooperation and hold on, here we go. The Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. All right, that's what that is. So the figures mean that 20% of the people in the country lived in poverty. Wow. 20% of the country lives in poverty. 27%, it says 27.9, so call it 28% of children live in poverty, and 13% of the seniors live below the poverty line in Israel. It doesn't sound like the people in Israel are living this way over and above better life than those in America. So if you ever believed that the funding of Israel's protection against terrorist groups hurts the American economy to the point where Israelis live a better life than Americans, it's just not true. I just showed you the information. You just saw it with your own eyes. I'll give you the link for those who are listening to the podcast so you can see it. You can read it for yourself. It's just not true. And these are the crazy conspiracy theories, the crazy things that come out of people's mouth with no fact checking whatsoever. They get on podcasts, they get on Fox News, they get on CNN, they say all this crazy, wild, fantastical stuff about Israel, about Israelis, about Jewish people with no facts whatsoever. And then when you look up the facts, which is very easy to do, all I'm doing is searching Google, ladies and gentlemen, and finding the articles. I'm not trying to be biased. If there's something out there that proves it, somebody please show me. I haven't seen it yet. It all proves the opposite. That helping the only democracy in the Middle East is not hurting Americans. It's not hurting them in the pocket. And especially it's the opposite is helping them, because you better believe that if Israel, God forbid, ever falls, which I don't believe it will, who do you think they're coming after next? They're going after UK? No. They're going after the beacon of the Western democracy, which is the United States of America. Israel does what no one else wants to do so that democracy can live around the world. That's just the truth. And they need a little help to do it. And spending less than 1% of our national budget to help them is not going to hurt us whatsoever. And the fact that 20% of the people in Israel live underneath the poverty line, let's see what that is. Let's do some quick math. And quick math is relative because I'm not good at math, but, Baruch Hashem for calculators. So there's about 300 million people that live here in the United States. So 20% of that is 60 million people. 60 million people living in poverty. Wow, that'd be a bunch. And I don't know what is the poverty rate for the United States. I want to look that up now. What is the poverty rate for the United States of America? Because I want to see this. So the U.S. poverty rate depends on the measure. But for 2023, the official rate was 11.1%. 11.1%. 11.1% opposed to 20%. It sounds like we're living about 9% better than the people there in Israel. And I'm not saying that to gloat. I'm saying that to combat the lie that because of the money Israel's getting from their defense fund, they're living better than Americans. So they're trying to paint a picture that they're still in that we're still in the money and we're living this big life over there in Israel. It's just not true. Now let's move on to Miss Candace Owens. And again, this ain't about Candace Owens. This ain't about Tucker Carlson and his guest. It's about the people like them. All right. It's about the people like them. Let's see here. let's see what Candace Owen had to say about Israel. She has a lot to say about Israel, but specifically the stuff that she's said lately.
The Star of David. That was never a symbol for Judaism until Sebastian Zevi, 1666. This is when he declared himself the Messiah. And that symbol is actually from Solomon. They believe that it has mystic powers. Prior to that, it was the Kiddush cup that represented Judaism. So if you go on Wikipedia, it'll tell you that. It's Kabbalistic. So they're wearing the Star of David. The Jews that I went to school with, do I think that they're practicing orgies? No, of course not. The Reformed Jews are not doing that I went to school with. They're being told, you wear this because the Holocaust happened and, you should love this symbol. It's a symbol of who you are. And I am challenging them to learn more because it does go back to Baal worship. You're exactly correct when you say that. They don't know that no more than I knew things about Black history. You know what you're told. We have to all become more studious on the topic of theology, is what I think. So even the Star.
Wow. Okay, so she said a lot there. First of all, did you notice that she likened Judaism to Baal worship? Like, if anything, we're more opposite than one another is Baal worship in Judaism. But because of the sect of Catholicism that she's in, who reject the Second Nicene Council, which says that God has not rejected his people, he's not rejected the Jewish people. Her sect of Catholicism believes that the Jews are rejected, that we're nothing, we're nobody, and that the Christians have replaced us. It's called replacement theology. Look that up for yourself to see the vile, crazy stuff that's about. And that's what she believes. So all of her stuff now has to be anti-Jewish, because if any of the thing in Tanakh and Torah are true, then that means everything she knows about religion is false. So now she has to liken us to Baal worship. But if anything, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, our forefathers, Moshe Rabbeinu, David Amelech, all the big names in Torah and Tanakh rejected Baal worship. All the good kings of Israel tore down the altars. All the prophets, the Navi, they told Israel to reject Baal worship and go back to the teachings of Moshe Rabbeinu, which is Judaism. So if we're going back, if we're leaving Baal worship and going back to Judaism, the two cannot be the same. They cannot be the same. And then she mentioned Shabtai Tzvi. Say that 15 times fast. She mentioned him, and apparently, he's been our leader or whatnot, or whatever she said about him. We believe that he's the Messiah. He believed that he was the Messiah, and she's talking about the Star of David. So let's break down all these different things. So the first thing I want to look at is who is Shabtai Tzvi. All right. And I'm using my Jewish learning on purpose because of Shabtai Tzvi's, and I'm sorry if I'm terrible at pronouncing things, but whatever. Because of what he did, I'm using a Reformed Jewish website. Because of what he did, Reformed Judaism actually came to be. So this is a part of the Reformed Judaism's history. All right. It's right here in this first line. It says a Kabbalist false Messiah, keyword false Messiah, gained a mass following in the 17th century, which is the 1600s, until he converted to what? Islam. She didn't want to say any of that because, of course, she's so she's so pro-Palestine and heartbroken by the way we've starved out Gaza. The only country in history, Israel's the only country in history that's supposed to feed and clothe and do all these things for the person they're actively in war with. Did America feed and clothe Afghanistan? Is Russia feeding and clothing the Ukraine or vice versa? I don't believe so. Anyway, while faith is while faith in the coming of the Messiah is a linchpin of Judaism, Jews have traditionally taken a patent, quintessent approach to their messianic beliefs since the devastation of the wrecked false Messiah, Bar Kokhba, in his rebellion against the Romans, and the centuries of persecution caused by other messianic movements, Christianity, Jews have been understandably suspicious about anyone's claim to be God's anointed. It says Shabtai Tzvi was said to have been born in the 9th of Av in 1626 to a wealthy family of merchants in modern day Turkey. It says that he suffered from severe bipolar disorder, apparently. And then he believed that he was a Messiah. He came across, I'm telling the story quickly because I don't want this to take up the whole podcast. But again, this link will be in the description, podcast notes, for you to read it on your own. He came across this prophet named Nathan. And this man named Nathan convinced Tzvi that he was the Messiah, right? So it says right here, in embracing the Messiah, Messiah fever began to spread throughout the communities of the diaspora. Repentance, extreme asceticism, I don't know that word, sorry. Scourging, fasting alternated with periods of ecstatic joy. Messianic prayers written by Nathan of Gaza were published, while some Jews began to make several plans for their imminent departure to the land of Israel. Others refused, believing that they would miraculously be transported there on clouds. So that's kind of telling you what was going on during that time. Shabtaiism influenced communities all over the Jewish world, many of whom were unaffected by the Kamelniki and had no significant history of persecution. And then we get here in 1666. So Candace Owen mentioned 1666. What really happened in 1666? She said that the Star of David was adopted in 1666 by Jews because they followed Shabtai Tzvi, and he was our leader, and we held him as Messiah. We know that's not true. Anybody knows the story. You can read this for yourself. He was pegged as a false Messiah, if anything. And then actually what happened in 1666, he was arrested in Constantinople. What is important to know about Constantinople? At that time, Constantinople was a hotbed for what? Islam, run by who? The Turks, right? So after a period of imprisonment during which he had held court as Messiah, replaced the fast of 9th of Av, which a festival celebrating his birthday, had begun to sign his letter. So he replaced the 9th of Av with his birthday. I'm not even going to repeat what that says because I think that's blasphemy. He was denounced for fomenting in sedition and brought before the Sultan. Now in a deprived state, he denied ever having made messianic claims. Quickly changed course, didn't he? He offered the choice of apostasy or death. He chose to convert to Islam. She never mentioned that. She's not going to tell you that, but that's the history. Shabtai Tzvi. Somebody please correct me because I know I'm pronouncing that. No, I'm butchering this man's name. And even though he's an apostate, I still want to get the name right. But anyhow, he became Aziz Mehmed Effendi, and with royal pension lived until 1676, outwardly as a Muslim, but secretly practicing in Jewish rituals. His letters reveal that at the time of his death, he still believed in his messianic mission. His long-term impact subsequently died out in a significant feature of Jewish life. Good. It's a long-term impact, was far-reaching, and most immediate influence was in the formulation of the new version of Jewish mysticism, the Hasidic movement, born in the late 18th century in Poland. Inwardly spiritual tone of early Hasidicism was a conscious reaction against the messianic I'm sorry. For some reason, I cannot read today. My goodness. Against the messianic exercises of the Shabbatians, while the Hasidic Jews, unconditionally faith in their rabbi or tzaddik, had in its precedent the dynamic between Shabtai Tzvi and his followers. In the late 20th century, the resurgence of the Messianic favor among some Chabad Lubavitch Hasidic Jews lent credence to this relationship. Historian Sasson took this idea to a step further, arguing that the whirlwind of popularity enthusiasm garnered by the secular Zionists like Theodor Herzl at the end of the 19th century cannot be understood without the reference of the Shabbatian movement, and so on and so forth. So Shabtai Tzvi was not some dude that just people follow like that. Like the whole world, there's a lot of Jewish rabbis who denounced him as Mashiach over and over and over and over again. Did he have followers? Absolutely he had followers. All the false messiahs had followers. Jesus had a large massing. He continues to have a large massing today. And the Jewish nation considers him a false messiah as well. And the crazy thing about the Star of David is that she says it's Baal worship. It goes back to other stuff. The Pope wears Star of David on his hat. Like, look it up. Like, actually, you ain't got to look it up. Here. I'll show it to you. Let's see. Look up the Pope's hat. I don't know what else that is called. Let's see here. Let's see. Of David. Because the Pope has a hat. Oh, there it is. Man, that's a bad look there for Candace. But I mean, I'm assuming if you were to show her this, like she wouldn't, somehow she would deny it or whatever. But yeah, here's the Pope in his hat of, the Star of David. Why does the Pope wear the Star of David? Vatican City, all this. Look at this. It's all over the place. Star of David all over this man's hat. Look at that. So yeah, don't tell me the Star of David is not unique to Judaism, is what I'm trying to say. All right, I feel like I'm rambling, but the Star of David is not unique to Judaism. There's a lot of Eastern religions who've used that type of star before Jewish people ever used it. Obviously, the Catholic Church uses it, the faith of her choice. And then let's look also at some of the history of the Star of David. All right. So it says, this is from Aish, Star of David, or the Mogan David, Origins and Meanings of the Jewish Star. It says, what is the Star of David? In modern times, the Star of David has become a premier Jewish symbol. The six-pointed star, the hexagram made of two interlocking triangles, can be found on mezuzahs, menorahs, tallit bags, kippas, ambulances. In Israel's bear sign of the red Star of David, and the flag of Israel has a blue Star of David planted squarely in the center. The origin says that the Star of David appeared thousands of years ago in the cultures of the East. It's also a popular symbol in pagan traditions, so that's not false, and used as decorative device in the first century churches and even in Muslim culture. So it's everywhere. So again, you remember when we had the definition of anti-Semitism, and it says that you put, paraphrasing, but when people put unfair expectations on the Jewish people as a whole, they don't put on other people. So it's okay for Muslims, it's okay for Christians to have a Mogan David, it's okay for Eastern religions to have it. They're not discussed at all, but it's the Jewish people. Oh, it's those, when they use it, now it becomes a symbol of Moloch. Now it becomes a symbol of who she used. She didn't say Moloch. What'd she say? Of Baal. Oh my goodness. So the Star of David isn't referred to in the Bible or the Talmud. The symbol was first adopted by Jews in the mid 14th century. This is the 1300s. So 300 years before all the Shabtai Tzvi stuff, we had already adopted the symbol. Okay? When the Holy Roman Emperor Charles IV granted the Jews of Prague the right to carry a flag, they chose the six-pointed star, well before Mr. Tzvi decided to be the Messiah. So these are the things that I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. We have to know history. We have to know Torah. We have to know Israeli government. These are things we have to know. And you don't have to be an expert at all these things. And you could, watch this, When there's conversations at work, don't try your best. And I know it's hard, whether it's on the subway, whether it's at work, whether it's walking, wherever it is, the bus stop, whatever it is. Try your best to leave your emotion out of it. I know it's hard. I know it's hard. But try your best to leave your emotion out of it, because when you get emotional, you start saying things that you wish you had not said. You start, and you may not hear someone when their questions or their comments are actually coming from a genuine place. And you can quickly correct them on some things. We quickly correct Candace Owen. We can quickly correct Tucker Carlson, because we know that their claims are false. We see it right here in all the evidence right here in front of us. But you may not have the evidence right there in front of you on the bus stop, on the subway, at work, at school, wherever it may be. But what you can say is, hey, I know these things are lies. I know that you believe that these things are true. But give me a day or two and I will show you evidence proving to the contrary. And that's okay to do. And people may respect you more when you're actually giving them something they can read. But also know this. There are those out there that will swear up and down that the sky is red, but doggone it, it's been blue for millennia. And you can take pictures. You can give them samples of gas from the sky. You can give them evidence from NASA. You can give them evidence from the local news station, and they will call all that conspiracy, and they will call all that lies from the big media and all this other stuff. There's nothing that you can do to convince that person that the sky is actually blue. And it's the same with anti-Semites and people who hate folks who hate the Jewish people, folks who hate the one Jewish nation that we have. You can tell them till you're blue in the face all the things that are true. They will never believe you. And that's okay. Those are the people that you cut off and leave alone, because you'll never be able to change their mind. The people like Candace Owens, the people like Tucker Carlson, you'll never be able to change their mind about Israel, because it's always about what Israel or the Jews have done to them, and about the conspiracies that they believe, and about the proof that they have, that they believe is actually real. But the truth is, if all their claims come to be false, their whole world begins to fall apart. But as long as you're armed with the truth and you know the truth, that is all you need to know for yourself. So if you present your coworkers or whomever is coming up with this crazy stuff like Candace Owen and Tucker Carlson, I have people I work with that love these people, and that's okay, because everything they say is not false. I'm not a follower of either one of these people. That's just not my cup of tea. But when they do say weird stuff, it needs to be corrected, not with emotion, but with facts. As Ben Shapiro always says, facts don't care about your emotion. And that I believe that wholeheartedly to the truth. So let's be armed with education. Let's be armed with the facts, so that we can combat anti-Semitism when we see it. Because 100% for sure, Candace Owen and Tucker Carlson are spewing anti-Semitic rhetoric. They will try to cover themselves by saying, no, they're just using free speech to disagree with Israel. But in fact, they're linking Jewish people to conspiracies, saying that we're still in the economy, we're living better when we're actually not, saying that our religion is based in some type of Baal worship. All these things are just not true. And within 45 minutes, I've proved all these things not to be true. And you could do the same thing. You don't need 45 minutes to do it. You just need a quick search on Google, or the knowledge you already know from going to shul, the knowledge you already got from a good Hebrew education. And also, hopefully, I'll have a head of school on the podcast to talk about the true importance of having your child have a great Hebrew education. It's so important. I'm not knocking if you got to send your kid to public school, you can't afford it. We'll talk about, hopefully we'll talk about ways to afford the school and everything, all that nature. But I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying, unless your child they're going to public school and they're getting, a stellar education from the synagogue that they're going to, whether that's a really, really good Sunday school or a really, really good kids program, God bless you. But I know for most people, that's not the case. If your kid is going to some type of public school that's not a Hebrew public school, They're not getting a Hebrew education. They won't be able to combat anti-Semitism. They won't be able to combat the lies about Israel. And unfortunately, a lot of those kids are the ones that are wrapped their heads in keffiyehs just a couple of years ago, yelling free Palestine and from the river to the sea. And they didn't even know why. And that's unfortunate. That's all I have for the day. I hope this helps someone. I hope this blessed someone. If it did, please share it with somebody that you know. Hit that thumbs up button if you're watching this on YouTube, as well as the notification bell, so you'll be notified every time that a brand new episode comes out, whether this is on camera or whether it's on audio. And obviously, if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple, please leave a review. It really helps us out in the algorithm. It helps people find this podcast, and it lets Apple, Spotify, YouTube, especially write a comment on YouTube. It lets people know that, hey, this podcast is interesting and people should be listening. So until next time, light up the darkness, change the world. Peace.